Dr. Syed Haider with the Dr. Haider Show. Welcome back. Thanks for coming. So, for those of you who don't know me, I have been treating COVID-19 patients online since December of 2020. And actually before that, but I didn't have a lot of success because no one was interested in the off label protocols. But since December of 2020, after Pierre Corey went viral in front of the Senate, people started, knocking down my door asking for ivermectin. So, I've been doing that for more than a year and a half now. So far, I've treated over 5,000 acute patients with no deaths. There were only, I think, 4 hospitalizations that were very brief, and they all made it out. And they're healthy now. And also treated a lot of people with preventive protocols, and then hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of patients with long COVID and vaccine injuries. Um, so I had a lot of success seeing a lot of people get better. A majority of people get better from long COVID, and the vast majority actually get better very quickly from long COVID and vaccine injuries. And despite that, have had multiple, like 5 or 6 medical board complaints at this point. Had to hire a lawyer to help me out with some of those, and have been reported by pharmacists and insurance companies, and basically have been fighting back this entire time. Before that, I'd been working for 10 years as a hospitalist and not had a single complaint from anyone ever, until the last year and a half. And it seems like the more you do and the better your outcomes are, the more, headaches and trouble, come your way. And especially the more prominent you become, unfortunately, people like Peter McCullough that I just interviewed earlier this week has been fired. Same with Pierre Corey, been fired from his job. Paul Merrick fired, and so they do come after you. So other people have had their licenses taken away, which thank God hasn't happened yet with me. But anyway, I've been doing all of that at mygotodoc.com, where people can register for free, ask questions for free, get free ebooks, and if they need prescriptions, they're available as well through that website for a doctor's fee. And also now just lately launched my gotostack.com, where I've upgraded kind of the supplement protocol. The pandemic protocol that's been used by millions of people at this point all over the world has been vitamin C, D, zinc, and quercetin. So I've actually upgraded that by adding bromelain and K2. And why bromelain is so important is because it helps you absorb quercetin. So quercetin is poorly absorbed on its own. Bromelain boosts the absorption dramatically, and and you should also take all of this with food, which also increases the absorption of all those nutrients. The other thing that bromelain does, it actually digests the spike protein. It directly digests the spike protein, which is a great effect as well. It also downregulates ACE2 receptors, and that's what the spike protein and the virus bind to in your body. So it decreases those binding sites. And so in the lab, in lab cell cultures of human cells, it has an inhibitory effect on COVID-19. And the K2 I added because um, vitamin D, if you're taking high doses for a long period of time, you're going to absorb more calcium from your diet. And that calcium, without K2 in your body, will go into your arteries and into your kidneys, into the wrong places, cause hardening of the arteries. K2, which is very deficient in the modern diet, especially the modern Western diet, even for healthy people. So K2 will help put that calcium where it needs to go into the bones. And the other beneficial thing about vitamin K2 specifically is it works in one of the ways that ivermectin works. Actually, it lowers the it basically inhibits nuclear factor kappa beta, which decreases the levels of interleukin 6. So interleukin 6 is a marker of severity in acute COVID, and also found elevated in most patients with long COVID. So it's beneficial as a preventative and also as a treatment. And so you really want the quercetin, just to briefly review the other parts of the protocol that are in this My Go To Stack supplement at mygotostack.com. The quercetin is a zinc ionophore. It helps you get zinc into your cells, which has a direct antiviral effect. But interestingly enough, quercetin also has its own antiviral effects. It's actually a 3CL protease inhibitor. And so you really want to be absorbing that. And that's another reason for the bromelain to help you absorb it. So not only does it help you get zinc into your cells, but it also directly inhibits the replication of the virus by inhibiting the activity of the viral 3CL protease. And so other 3CL protease inhibitors you may have heard of are ivermectin and also Paxlovid. That's the only way that Paxlovid works actually is by 3CL protease inhibition. So that's the reason quercetin is important. Zinc is important again for the direct antiviral effects, but you got to get it into the cells with the quercetin. And then the vitamin C, also has immune boosting and antiviral effects. Vitamin D, super immune boosting and antiviral effects. So that's a quick rundown of the importance of the core protocol that millions of people have been using over the last year and a half or 2 years, and the additions that I made at mygotostack.com. So we have an immunity supplement up right now that's live that people can order. And so we were supposed to have hypnotist Paul William on today with us. Unfortunately, the internet is not being helpful in his case. Something with, I don't know. We tried everything we could to get him to join the live stream, and he was not able to join for some reason. So we'll try to reschedule with him and figure out what the problem was. So for today, I guess I'll check and see if there's any audience questions, and if not, we can cut this short and try to reschedule Paul Williams. So let me pull up the chat. Um, all right. Hello, Andra Morris Ellis. Thank you for assisting me, Dr. Hyder. Yeah, in the chat, let me know how we did assist you. Um, and the other thing that I just want to make a call for people who may have been treated by me especially for long COVID, acute COVID, and for vaccine injuries. If you've been treated, whether you had a positive or negative, experience, we want to hear both, and we want to, get patient testimonials and try to spread the word, because I've gone online and I've looked at, there's long COVID websites, and there's vaccine injury websites, and most of the patient stories on those websites are very negative, and it's really hard to find a positive experience where somebody figured it out. And the problem is that there is kind of like a selection bias at play here, and it works in two different ways depending on your perspective. So from the doctor's perspective, the selection bias is usually the patients who feel better will come back and tell you and follow up and be like, thank you so much, I felt better. The patients who feel worse or don't get better, they are often like, they write you off. They're like, this guy's not helping, I'm going to go find somebody else to help me. And they never follow up, and they don't tell you that they didn't get better, and that's why they went to somebody else. So that selection bias actually makes doctors think that their protocols are more effective than they really are. So everyone, regardless whether you feel better or worse, you should always come back and let us know. And oftentimes, you just have to be patient. We have to try different things, and no matter where you go, you're going to face that. But the selection bias works in the other way for these websites that are gathering patient testimonials. The people who feel the worst are the ones who are going to go searching out these websites and like putting up their testimonials. And the people who've gotten better, they're just going to be like, I'm done with this. Thank God, I'm out of this horror, and now I can move on with my life. And they're not searching out those websites to tell people what they did to get better. And so it's really important that you tell the doctor if you're not feeling better, or if you are feeling better, and then you go and search out all these testimonial websites and groups, and tell those people, pass it on, pass on the benefit that you got yourself. And you can tell your close companions and your inner circle, but I think it's really helpful if you go search out those websites online where all these long COVID patients are congregated, telling their stories, trying to raise awareness. Go and tell them that, hey, I did this thing and it worked for me. I did that thing, it worked for me. It's not going to be the same thing for everyone, but let's get back to the comments and see. So Andrew Morris says, my turmeric formulation includes bromelain. Yep. Yeah, that's great. NAC, yeah, NAC is helpful. I wasn't able to stick NAC in the supplement. We ran out of space, so I had to choose the most important things. But selenium also, you can get it from Brazil nuts, or you can get it, Brazil nuts is going to be kind of random. Each nut has a different amount. On average, you'll probably end up with a good amount if you have a Brazil nut a day. Seems to be the amount that most people need of selenium. So about 100 milligrams a day of selenium is really important, actually, for autoimmune diseases, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and NAC is helpful. I mean, I've heard that there's something about NAC that you shouldn't take it for the long term. I'm not really clear on that. I'll have to look it up. But I have heard one of my patients tell me that they had heard from somebody else that NAC may actually be something you should avoid taking long term. But certainly for the short term, it's very helpful. And I think the way it works is by attaching the nicotinic acid receptors, and and some people have come back to me, they've tried it for long COVID, for acute COVID, and for long COVID vaccine injuries. For a lot of people, it helps, and oftentimes helps with fatigue, which is one of the biggest symptoms of long COVID, and helps sometimes with brain fog too. Um, and if it doesn't seem to work, another thing that activates nicotinic receptors obviously is nicotine, which Dr. Brian Ardis is recommending for people and has had good success with. Super Alien, thank you so much, Dr. Haider. I'm vaxxed, first dose injured. I'm on steroids, but my GP doesn't know how it works. Today, taking 10 milligrams. Should I take it for 7 days? So, Super Alien joins us from Australia, I think, and the steroid dose that I generally use is 15 milligrams for 5 days of prednisone, then 10 milligrams for 5 days of prednisone, then 5 milligrams for 5 days of prednisone. And some people need to stay on the 5 milligrams for 30 days, or even longer in some cases. And it's a really, really low dose. So it's relatively safe. But with all of these, you gotta find a personal protocol that works for you. Some people may need to be on the 15 or the 10 milligrams a little bit longer. They need to stretch it out a little bit, because when they taper down, they start feeling worse. So with long COVID, you want to try to get on a protocol that works, and then you want to stay on it for a period of time, maybe a week or two or three or four, and then gradually taper off. And then if you start to have your symptoms coming back, you go back up to the dose that you were taking earlier, where you had no symptoms, or the maximum suppression of symptoms that you could achieve. um, and so that's basically the basic approach there. I'm also trying nicotine gum 8 milligrams daily, and it's working like a charm. That's great to hear. I mean, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'd like to know what symptoms specifically it's helping with. But that's awesome. um, yeah, I'd like to hear back, get feedback from people, after hearing Brian Artis, and after, trying different things, what was it that helped. And I would, I'd highly recommend that you go to the long COVID websites, and post your experiences up there. Um, because like I said in the beginning, there are forums, where people are posting their experiences, and they're mostly negative from what I've seen. I can't find the long COVID website that I think of, but there is a vaccine injury website, that I was just seeing this morning. I forget what it's called, where they're trying to raise awareness. This is something real. It's real, not rare. Yeah, that's what it is. So anyone who's had a vaccine injury, real, not rare. So Super Alien, I would highly recommend that you go there. And maybe you want to wait until you've gotten a little bit farther along in your recovery. But when you go to realnotrare.com, I'm going to share this screen with everyone, so you guys see what I'm seeing. So at Real Not Rare, you've got a bunch of testimonials. Okay, and if you scroll down, you'll see all posts, real stories, injured young, video, audio included in the post, and then you've got success stories over here. Okay, so you've got, I don't know how many real stories and everything there are. It goes on for at least 5 pages. Let's see, 7 pages. Go to the end, and we've got 67 pages. Okay, of stories of people. Each page has at least three, four, five. Okay, so we've got 67 pages. About, if you're saying it's about five per page, we've got 335 stories approximately in on this website. Yeah, something in that range, right? Out of that, under success stories, we have one single success story from Amy Silver. All right. And her success, she didn't have terrible symptoms, but it was pretty bad. Full body, painful neuropathy, needle stabbing sensations, sensations of thorns stuck in my skin, toxic burning sensations of someone poured acid. So I take it back. It was pretty bad. Extreme brain fog, dizziness, and feeling out of it. All her tests came back negative, but she did have Lyme disease 10 years ago. So it's possible it got reactivated. And she says, what worked for her? Hyperbaric oxygen therapy cleared up my brain fog and healed my Lyme 10 years ago. I did 40 sessions. For neuropathy, I used the Quell 2.0 TENS device for 3 months. Also long walks or hikes. The longer I exercised, the more my symptoms would suppress, which is kind of weird. And it's very unusual for long COVID for exercise to make them feel better, maybe 5% in my experience. So for most people, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be, you have to avoid exercise. For her, Western medicine was a complete waste of time, declined pain medications. She tried ozone therapy, which I have talked about as being helpful for some people. You can do topical ozone instead of an ozone sauna. You can go to Pure 03, PUR 03. I think shop or something. You can search it online. It'll pure 03 ozonated oils. And the way to use those is you start with the lowest strength oil, gradually work your way up to the higher strength oils. So she tried that. That didn't work. The ozone through a sauna, whatever that means. And then red light therapy, cryotherapy, infrared sauna, photon genius, Reiki massage, vitamin C IV, which for some people does help, compression stockings, chiropractic adjustments, acupuncture. So what you'll notice here is none of this is, ivermectin, prednisone, Mravroc, you know, the supplements recommended by the FLCCC, low histamine diet. None of the stuff that we all know works for COVID, and that every doctor who's actually in this space is using on their COVID patients. She didn't try any of them, except for, I guess you could say, ozone, something that I just recently heard about. But if you go to FLCCC and you look at the long COVID protocol, that's what everyone in this space is using, some version of that, but that's kind of like the base. That's where most of us are starting. Antihistamines, another one. So she didn't try anything that we know works for long COVID in the vast majority of patients that we see. So this, unfortunately, is not super helpful. So we need way more, posts under success stories, and we need to start highlighting these therapies that are actually working in the vast majority of people. So this is just so important. Okay, Super Alien says, you won't believe it. I had zero awareness, many times almost run over by a car, been taking nicotine for a few days, and I was crying like coming back to life. This is insane. I mean, that's just wonderful. I am so happy to hear this feedback. I mean, the more feedback we get as physicians, that kind of like, you know, the more likely we are to recommend it to more people. I mean, I start off, I heard from Brian Artis. He said 500 people told me nicotine made them feel better, right? Not a single one felt worse, And for him, again, there was probably some selection bias, because he probably told thousands of people and 500 got back to him and told him that it worked. So I didn't press him on this point, but it's unlikely, extremely unlikely, that there's a 100% improvement rate with nicotine or with anything that we tell people. But 500 is a good amount. I don't know what the denominator is, how many people he actually told. He probably didn't keep track of it either. But that 500 people benefiting from a therapy, getting back to you and saying it helped me, is a very, very good sign. That means that people should be trying this. And here we have another one from Super Alien. A life less toxic. Whoa, that's very interesting. Yes, ozone therapy has been helpful, so that's good to hear. What kind of ozone therapy did you use? Because apparently it comes in a lot of different ways. Jody, Virginia. Hi, Dr. Haider. Hi, Jody. She's one of my oldest contacts here in this space. Thanks for helping via Push Health. Hopefully meds arrive tomorrow. Yep, I hope so. A life less toxic. What's the name of that website again? So that is realnotrare.com for people who have had vaccine injuries specifically. So on that website, you'll find the famous ones, right? Like this father, he lost, I think, a 15-year-old son. One of these listed up here is probably Maddie DeGray. I don't recognize her here, but Maddie DeGray was a 12-year-old Pfizer vaccine victim. She was in the Pfizer trial and is now in a wheelchair. She might be searchable. She has had one of the worst vaccine injuries, and I was just talking to somebody about vaccine injuries and how to treat them this morning. Let's see, Maddie, there she is, 12 years old. Pfizer trial for 12 to 15-year-olds, Cincinnati, Ohio. There's a bunch of interviews that he's done. Steve Kirsch has talked to her mother. There's Maddie's mom at Capitol Hill with Maddie. And so she was a healthy, energetic 12-year-old social butterfly. So basically, she, very shortly after the Pfizer dose that she got, she experienced, so less than 12 hours after her second dose, she experienced severe abdominal pain, painful electric shocks in her spine and neck, swollen, ice cold hands and feet, chest pain, tachycardia, pins and needles in her feet that eventually led to loss of feeling from the waist down, experienced blood in her urine from 7 tests over 3 months, mysterious rashes, peeling feet, reflux, gastroparesis, which means like the stomach's not moving normally forward, vomiting, which often comes with gastroparesis, eventually the inability to swallow liquids or food, dizziness, passing out, convulsions, tics, inability to sweat, swollen lymph nodes in her armpits, urinary retention, which means she can't pass urine, heavy periods with clots of blood, decreased vision, tinnitus, memory loss, mixing up words, extreme fatigue, and a whole lot more. Spent 64 days in the hospital, had 3 separate hospital stays, 9 trips to the ER. 9 months into this, no real answers. I've actually been trying to reach out to her through different, you know, routes and have not been able to get in touch with her mom about trying, the protocols that I've seen work in people, and maybe she has another doctor who's trying them. I mean, look at that. This was a normal girl, and then 12 hours after her shot, she is basically, close to disabled. She has a feeding tube, and is in a wheelchair. So, what I was talking about this morning with vaccine injuries is, I can't guarantee that medications would make her better. It's possible that she had, a stroke, or she had a peripheral, stroke in her spine, like a spinal stroke kind of thing. Maybe nerve cells have died, maybe different parts of her brain have died and scarred over. And so who knows, right? But I'm pretty sure that, something could help her feel better, right? Could optimize her functioning and get her, a lot better than where she is right now. But there's no guarantee for people who are vaccine injured. It's not just the spike protein. It's spike protein plus lipid nanoparticles, which also have their own toxic effects, and it's mRNA that may be retrotranscribed in the DNA and maybe persisting in the body for a very long time, creating spike protein. Even once you get rid of the spike protein, it may come back because of the mRNA may still be there. So who knows what's going on fully? But still, I have seen a lot of people get a whole lot better, and hopefully she doesn't have a permanent injury. Or hopefully she has, So like what I was describing this morning with the interviewer was that we've got a spectrum of injuries from none, or none that people are aware of. They may have silent inflammation from the vaccines that they're unaware of, and maybe some people literally have no inflammation, nothing. Maybe they were, totally fine and no problems with the vaccine. I don't know at this point. I'm going to reserve judgment until I have more information. I mean, some people are saying that everyone who got vaccinated is going to be dying. I don't know, or getting cancer or something, right? It's possible, unfortunately. But there's a spectrum from extremely mild, or undetectable, or like something that you feel normal, all the way to death. All right, at the other end of the spectrum after a vaccine injection. So on the end, closer to the death side of the spectrum, you can have death of certain parts of your body, right? You could have death of, a portion of your brain. It could die, and if it's really dead, there's basically no coming back from dead, unless you reroute and somehow, like, regain the function using something different, right? So the brain can reroute around dead areas, and you can regain function by retraining other parts of your brain to take up the slack, you know and it maybe it's theoretically possible to actually regrow the brain. I mean, the traditional understanding is that there are no stem cells, and that doesn't happen in brain. There's no regrowing the brain or the heart. um, there may be some, research that suggests that that's not actually that strict of a, hard and fast rule, and maybe there are stem cells, and maybe it is possible to regenerate. But the experience of 99.99% of people is that once you have a stroke, you have to work around it, right? You're not actually going to regrow those brain cells. You're going to retrain other brain cells. And same for the heart. Once you have a heart attack and part of your heart scars over, that's not going to regrow, right? You're always going to have a scar there, and it's just dead, that part. And the heart it's harder to recover than the brain. I mean, there's just you can't, like, go around it. You can't. It's not like nerve cells that you're rerouting information. It's a muscle, and if muscles part of it dies, it's just weaker. So in the future, hopefully with stem cell, breakthroughs, we'll be able to inject stem cells into these areas and regrow dead heart muscle and dead brain tissue and dead spinal tissue and dead peripheral nerve tissue. But that's, it's still a bit out there. Let's get back to um, the see if there's any questions here. So Jody Virginia says longest, not oldest. Yeah, not oldest, right? um, so a life less toxic. I use the cream every day. Awesome. Um, and prayers for Maddie and her family. Absolutely. Um, Super alien. My experience was inhumane. Felt kinder for me to die. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people who are vaccine injured, um, it's so severe, and worse even sometimes than the severity is that there's no one who believes you. Sometimes, it's not like oh, I have cancer and everyone's supportive and everyone, is like, oh, you have cancer, like, what can I do? That's terrible. And like, you get a lot of social support when you have cancer, like an acceptable medical diagnosis. Whereas this is one of those unacceptable diagnoses, right? Like, it reminds me of Unacceptable Jessica's Substack, right? Like, she named it that because something Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said about unacceptable people. And so unfortunately, a lot of us feel unacceptable. We have an unacceptable diagnosis. We're saying unacceptable things, and your doctor doesn't accept you, and your friends and your family don't accept that the vaccine did it. And so that itself, I think, for a lot of people can cause pain. But the symptoms themselves are severe enough, right? People literally kill themselves, and that's one of the things that needs. That's part of the raising of awareness that vaccine injuries can be so severe that people literally kill themselves over them, right? Like, one of my first vaccine injured patients had severe tinnitus, and he remembered a story, or he had seen a story of somebody who killed themselves from severe tinnitus or ringing in the ears. And that was one of the things that was really worrying him. And he was telling me, if this continues much longer, I feel like I'm going to go crazy, and I'm worried that that might be me. Um, and so the symptoms can be severe, and I'm glad that you're feeling better. Physical therapy, brain plasticity, absolutely. Yeah, the brain is plastic, and it can rewire. Jody Virginia says, Dr. Hyder, how long do people generally test positive for? When are you out of the woods? Um, it's all over the map. I mean, in terms of having COVID, and testing positive for an acute infection, um, you know, some people, it's pretty rare, can test positive for months. And so because of that, we think that some people develop a chronic infection, and some people may have a chronic infection that doesn't test positive. It may be kind of sequestered somewhere, and it's not, you know, producing. It's not entering the bloodstream. It's not test. It's not getting into your, the surface areas. Maybe it's in your gut or something similar to feline enteric coronavirus. But yeah, um, I'm not sure when you're out of the woods. So I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by it, but a few weeks, right? Like four to 6 weeks, unfortunately. And the immunes, the what you need to get rid of is the spike protein, and you can test for the spike protein specifically at covidlonghaulers.com. They have a S1 subunit of the spike protein test. And so until the spike protein is gone, you can trigger long COVID, right? It can be triggered by junk food, it can be triggered by stress, it can be triggered by exercise, it can be triggered by, a high histamine diet. Maybe a lot of different things can trigger long COVID until your body's had a chance to clear out the spike protein. So you got to be careful. I'd say don't exercise for at least 4 weeks after the first symptom of acute COVID infection, and take all the medications and make sure you're back to normal, and then gradually reintroduce your normal lifestyle. um, like super alien says, like electric shocks in my entire body, I went catatonic. One of these walking zombie, hand up in the air and foaming coming out of my mouth, and I am way better with FLCCC protocol. That's great to hear. Andrea Morris Ellis says, which nutrient absorbs the S protein? So that's bromelain, BROMELAIN. It's an enzyme from pineapples, and it digests things. So it's helpful for digesting the spike protein, which means it comes along and snips it like a pair of scissors and breaks it up. Um, and the other thing that it's helpful for, or may be helpful for osteoarthritis and arthritis, it seems to be helpful for that as well, and probably a bunch of other things. It has its own antiviral effects. Like I was saying, it probably has not. Most of these uh, chemicals from plants have a lot of effects. Just what we know of, or that I know of. Actually, there's probably other things in there that other people know of. So it, like I was saying, it downregulates ACE2 receptors and has some non-specific effects as well. Yeah, Indigrove says they transgressed with purpose, reckless, and criminal. Um, Is the test accurate? No. Yeah, I mean, we know the tests aren't accurate. I actually I don't really go by the tests, or I don't recommend people go by the tests. I think that there are, I mean, COVID is what's going around, and it keeps going around, whether it's being released on us or whether it's actually mutating, as Gert Van den Bosch suggests, and all these waves are mutations, or they're, just you know a deep bench of variant players that are being released on the population. I don't know, but one way or the other, it's there's a lot of COVID, and it keeps coming around again and again. And so I just, if somebody gets a viral illness, I tell them just assume it's COVID and treat it that way. Unique symptom of hair loss, Andra Morris Ellis says, started 6 weeks ago, stress related. I don't think it's unique. I mean, it's very common in people who get COVID, get vaccinated, get exposed to the spike protein in any way. Hair loss, um, is quite common. People lose their hair, and then very, very gradually it comes back. I mean, if hair falls out, the hair follicle, it takes, a few months to actually have that come back. So, so hair loss is one of those symptoms that it's hard to monitor, or kind of like, it's not a good benchmark, of recovery, because it's hard to track because it takes so long to recover it, and you may be completely better. You may have gotten rid of the spike protein, everything, all the inflammation's gone, and your hair is still not back, just because it takes a while, to grow back. Life Less Toxic says, super alien, I'm so happy that you're finding relief. And um, Jody Virginia, I guess I meant out of the woods of the worst case. The numerous vaccines didn't seem to stop the super spreader at P. Yeah. Yeah, the vaccines don't work. So, um, Super Alien says, I took a copy of FLCCC to my GP and he helped me a lot. That's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that that happened in Australia, where I was under the impression that, it's such a police state that no one can do anything anymore that they want. I can walk and talk, do shopping, just brain fog now, and I'm on steroids. Um, so brain fog, yeah. So I mean, it's give the things some time. Be patient and give it a few weeks on everything that you're trying, and give the steroids a little bit of time to work. And if you haven't tried fluvoxamine or Prozac, then that's a possible thing to keep in your back pocket as something else to try. And uh, I mean, there's a whole lot of options. So don't give up. Um, Uh, where can we find the vitamins? So it should be on the screen. Yeah, so you can see it, mygotostack.com. Upgrade your immune supplements. That I mean, I have come out with you know, that upgraded version of the supplements that everyone's been taking by adding the bromelain and the K2. You can get it right now at mygotostack.com. But there will be some other supplements that we should be coming out with in the next days, or week or two, and those, we're going to come out with an herbal supplement which has curcumin and black seed in it, along with one other secret ingredient that I threw in there, um, and that should be live soon. So that also fits in really well with the FLCCC protocol, which recommend curcumin and black seed. And then the third one that we're coming out with is going to be a 3CL protease herbal 3CL protease inhibitor. So basically the strongest on the market that you can get. And that's those are extracts from scutellaria baicalensis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically purple gromwell root and Chinese skullcap. These two plants are very rich in these compounds, baicaline, and again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing them correctly, apigenin, wagonin, and then the purple gromwell has chiconin. So all of these, most of them have 3CL protease inhibitory effects. And so the idea there is you can use that as a kind of like a Paxlovid substitute, acute antiviral for if you get a virus. You can take that. You can take that for a viral infection on day 1, 2. Paxlovid I don't like because it's got ritonavir, which is an HIV drug, and it has black box warnings and has a lot of serious side effects with it. So we have thousands of years of experience with herbal 3CL protease inhibitors. So that's the reason I came up with that. And that one also may be kind of a last ditch thing to try for long COVID, because we've started hearing reports of people trying 3CL protease inhibitors and resolving long COVID. And herbal ones. There are case reports of people who have tried these herbal extracts that are 3CL protease inhibitors, and getting better from long COVID when nothing else worked. Even Paxlovid. Some people have tried Paxlovid. So some people would just go to their doctor and like, please doc, give me Paxlovid. I have long COVID and maybe it's a chronic infection and let's just try it. And a handful of doctors have gone ahead and prescribed it, and we have heard some scattered case reports of people actually getting better, which suggests that some long COVID at least is a chronic infection, maybe something similar to feline enteric coronavirus, something which you would think millions of dollars would be thrown at in terms of research, but no. um, let's see. uh, is anyone taking skull cap? So yeah, skull cap is one of those things that um, that's scutellaria baicalensis or whatever. One of the most famous herbalists in the world, basically, I forget his name, but he highly recommends. I mean, he says you cannot have an herbal protocol without Chinese skullcap in it for COVID-19. It is there are so many compounds in there that are effective against COVID-19. It is the premier herb for COVID-19, and he actually, I mean, if I can look him up, who was that? I'll have to post it in the comments. I don't remember his name, but he published like 160-page, almost like an ebook on the herbal approach to COVID-19. Just really top-notch information. Does vaccine reside in the liver? I take milk thistle for gentle liver flush with NAC and vitamin K2 and organic bone broth. So the vaccine does go to the liver and most of the organs in the body as well. Milk thistle is great, and NAC, K2, organic bone broth, can't argue with that. So yeah, I know it's kind of you know controversial, but I have seen some benefit with coffee enemas for liver detox. Just personal experience with patients, working with a Ayurvedic doctor who basically specializes in cancer patients and very poor people who can't afford anything, and treats them with coffee enemas are part of his protocol, along with juicing and supplements and stuff, and severe restrictive dietary regimens. But that's another thing that, and I wouldn't do it like every day for the rest of your life, but once in a while, give it a try. Jody, Virginia. So in 2 weeks, if still not cytokine storm severe, would that be a good sign, or still waiting for 6 weeks to not worry? At least 4 weeks minimum to not to try to live really clean. Don't eat any junk food. Avoid high histamine foods. Look up high histamine food lists online. Take all the medications, until you feel 100%, and then wait until week 4 from day 1 of symptoms, or 30 days to pass, and then very gradually try to start exercising. Just like dip your toe in the water of like exercise, and maybe foods that have high histamine in them, and see how you react, see how you feel. And if you want to be extra cautious, then you would wait 6 weeks. But in general, I tell everyone, just wait 30 days and then try to get back to your normal life, but try to take it slowly and go back, gently, you know, enter in gently and slowly. They use milk thistle for snake bite, I think. Yeah, there's a lot of, the thing is that herbs have a lot of, myriad effects, right? So you can use a lot of different herbs for a lot of different things. Of course, Three Amigos, I occasionally rotate between mushrooms, cordyceps, reishi, maitake. Yeah, actually, the person I was talking about, the Ayurvedic practitioner, use a lot of mushrooms also. These mushrooms are super immune boosters and beneficial for cancer patients too. All right. So all right, so we have some. I'm going to try to start doing some shorts. experiment with those. And then in terms of upcoming episodes, I just want to, this is available on my YouTube channel under upcoming live streams. But the other thing I wanted to mention to everyone is that Dr. Artis's show got pulled from this YouTube channel. And so if another one gets pulled, we'll be off air for a week. And if we continue doing what we're doing, we may be off air for good. So everyone should go and sign up on my Rumble channel. That's rumble.com/C/Dr. Syed Haider, which is DrSyedHaider. And I guess I'll post it in the chat here. Yeah, so please sign up there, subscribe there, and if we go off the air here, then I will just be over there, and maybe I'll show up on Getter or something else. But for now, I've got a Rumble channel, and definitely try. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Three Amigos. I mean, there's so many people talking about so many things, and I think the YouTube algorithm and the AI that Google has, they can like review transcripts, right? Like they can create transcripts, and I'm sure they do, and the title had snake venom in it and Dr. Artist, and I think they just have like an AI algorithm that's designed to comb through YouTube, find any mention of Dr. Artist and snake venom and COVID, and just yank that video. So it's an automated thing, and it's not just the comments, it's not just what's written, it's actually what's said as well, which is scary, but that's the world we're living in now. I mean, everything that we speak about, into our phones may be, reviewed by some AI somewhere, if not now, at some point. What's the scientific Latin name of the skull cap? So scutellaria baicalensis. I'll put it in the chat. Scutellaria baicalensis. Oh, baicalensis. Or something like that. I think that's the correct spelling. And then purple gromwell is I forget. That's got a funny name. But yeah, there is one supplement I found with scutellaria that has like standardized amounts of different parts of the scutellaria. I was only able to find one, so that is somewhere online. You might be able to find that. But as I said before, we have created one as well, and that should be going up. And it's better than the one that anything that's available online. Actually, all the herbal extracts. Because this one has the one that we're making has standardized scutellaria extracts plus purple gromwell. And purple gromwell, the one we're using is I think Lithospermum erythrorhizon is the scientific name of that one. Something like that. Yeah, so scutellaria baicalensis is the one to use because it's got baicaline and baicalin and wagonin and apigenin. All of these things are active against COVID-19. I think all of them except for wagonin are 3CL protease inhibitors. Wagonin is some kind of non-specific, antiviral that works for COVID-19 also in the lab, at least in a petri dish. And so yeah, that is the one that you need. And then the Lithospermum erythrorhizon also has a bunch of different components. The perhaps one of the strongest ones is chiconin, which is a 3CL protease inhibitor. But all of these plants have multiple active compounds in them, so it's good to not just isolate one of them and take only that. And so what we have in the supplement that I've created is an extract, like a broad spectrum extract, but then we've also standardized the composite, at least this much of the certain, the different ingredients, because when you get an extract, every extract has slightly different ingredients, so we wanted to standardize the amounts, or at least the minimum amounts of the different ingredients that are in there. So that's how it works for us. But they are full spectrum extracts plus minimum amounts of some of the active compounds, which I think is important because there's more in there than what we're aware of. And with herbs, you always have like there's in their natural state with all the other enzymes and things in them. Those also contribute to preventing side effects and maximizing the benefit. Um, versus like Western medicine, where you literally isolate one compound and get rid of everything else that it usually shows up with in nature. And so it's very, it's very likely to cause side effects because it's not being balanced by other things that are usually balancing it out in nature. Suggested to avoid getting flagged. Cheryl. Yeah, I should be downloading I'm going to be downloading my videos also, and they do cross post to Rumble, and let's see, Janice Schoenhofer, you're welcome. um, Okay, suggestions to avoid flagging by keywords. Replace the C word with cocoa and replace the drug that must not be named with IV. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, let's tell Elon Musk to buy Google and YouTube. um, um, yeah, unfortunately, at the end of the day, eventually, I don't think there's any way to really speak freely on YouTube without getting kicked off eventually. I mean, one option that I'm considering is to start the stream on YouTube and then switch to Rumble. And if anyone wants to hear the, controversial parts of it, you're going to have to go to Rumble, because YouTube is a great place to get subscribers and spread the word. I mean, um, you would wish that everyone would just go to Rumble, but when you get kicked off to Twitter or kicked off YouTube, you might get like 1 to 10% of your subscriber base follows you over there. People are just addicted to YouTube and Twitter and these mainstream platforms, and it's very difficult. Even if they were watching a show that they enjoyed, it's very difficult to get them to go somewhere else. They're just like, I just want to use YouTube. I just, whatever's on YouTube, that's what I'm going to watch. And unfortunately, that's part of how you get propagandized because you're inside a big echo chamber where um you know so Odyssey is another good one. Getter is where FLCCC is. So yeah, I'm looking into all of those, and maybe we'll figure out a way to just post to everything, try to reach people wherever they are. um so all right, so this was fun, and I'm glad you all showed up, and some of the Q&A sessions are always fun. So I'm glad we got to do that, and hopefully we'll have hypnotist Paul William talking about propaganda and brainwashing and the pandemic at some future date. And I'll have to try to figure out, maybe I can figure out some way to get him on the phone if he's not able to join our streaming software. um, the notices are not as readily available on Rumble. Yeah, that's another problem. Yeah, like what's upcoming, and yeah, that is an issue. A lot of people have great Instagram channels. Yep. Andrew Morris Ellis says skull cap is great for long haul symptoms too, or just during active viral positive symptoms. Um, yes. So this is a good point. So the skull cap, Chinese skull cap, or Scutellaria baicalensis. There's a lot of different Scutellaria subspecies. So Scutellaria baicalensis, um, and this great herbalist, what he recommended was getting a liquid extract, and I'll see if I can post his website. He has like I said, a giant book that goes into great depth with herbal protocols, and there are a couple of locations that have, I think, bottled his herbal liquid extract protocols, and I'll see if I can find one of those also. But it's great for active viral symptoms, right? It has active antiviral effects, and so antivirals need to be started on day one, okay, or two. But the earlier you start, the more effective they're going to be. If you wait until day 5, 6, 7, they're not going to have their antiviral effect unless the virus is still replicating. So it's possible that the virus kind of hides inside the body of long COVID people somewhere and still is actively replicating. And if that is the case in some or all long haulers, which we haven't proven yet, we're not sure of it, then an antiviral would help, and Scutellaria would help. It also probably has non-specific anti-inflammatory effects, so it may be helpful in that sense. Just like ivermectin has antiviral and anti-inflammatory effects, and so it's helpful across the spectrum. But specifically talking about its antiviral effects, I think it does help some long haulers for sure. when nothing else worked. So the herbal 3-CL protease inhibitors like scutellaria, baicalensis, or skullcap, Chinese skullcap, have been found to be beneficial for long haulers for sure. And whether that's some other effect, separate from its antiviral effects, some anti-inflammatory effects, some immune modulatory effects, which I'm sure most herbs have some kind of immune modulatory effect. It could be just the immune modulation, or it could actually be that those long haulers that are feeling better when they take scutellaria are feeling better because they have a chronic active viral infection, which means that there is full whole virus replicating and dividing and multiplying right inside your body, versus our current understanding of long haul is basically that there are pieces of the virus that are triggering chronic inflammation. So it's not really a chronic infection. Infection means that there's live virus. Our understanding of long haul has primarily been that we have little bits of spike protein called the S1 subunit lingering in people's monocytes, which are your immune cells, triggering inflammation and causing all your symptoms. So that's the understanding of Bruce Patterson. And he's a scientist, and he's been able to find the S1 subunit of spike protein in monocytes. And he's been able to find the inflammation in his in-cell-kind panel that's being kicked up by those monocytes. And he's been able to see that when I lower the inflammation, people's symptoms get better. And once people's inflammation is gone, their immune cells get rid of the S1 subunit of spike protein. When I retest them, I don't see the S1 subunit anymore, and their symptoms are gone. So therefore, that is the cause. That's the ultimate cause. Um, but there's a subset of patients who don't get better, like 5, 10, 15%, or they don't get fully better, right? And for them, like I've said before, some of those patients went on to try herbal 3-CL protease inhibitors or Paxlovid, which is a 3-CL protease inhibitor, and then they did get better. So it's possible that they have a chronic viral infection with COVID somewhere in their body. So, for example, like in their gut, maybe their gut is chronically infected with COVID, or maybe their lymph tissue somewhere in their armpit and and their groin is chronically infected with COVID. And without doing like a biopsy of the lymph tissue, you're not going to find the active virus. And maybe it's just replicating in those areas, and it's not spreading up into your nose and mouth anymore, so you can't do a swab and test for it and find it, right? Unless you go deep into those areas and take biopsies and get tissue from those areas and culture it. It's a long drawn out process, and no one's gone to the trouble to do that yet. Um, but the reason it's a strong possibility, one of the reasons at least, is that we've seen something with other coronavirus. There's another type of coronavirus, not COVID-19, but the same family of viruses can infect a cat and cause feline enteric coronavirus, which is a chronic infection, which means that there is actively replicating virus in the cat's gut. Okay. And it's causing an illness, a chronic illness. And so maybe there is, human enteric coronavirus with COVID 19. It's a possibility that has not been evaluated. No one has checked yet. But it's one of the possibilities, one of the theories for why Paxlovid and scutellaria are helping patients with long COVID when everything else is failing. Maybe they just need a little bit of extra oomph, a little boost of a really strong antiviral that just nips it in the bud and is like, okay, now COVID is not able to multiply anymore. And so ivermectin has 3-CL protease inhibitory effects, but it's not a super strong 3-CL protease inhibitor. Whereas if you take the ingredients of scutellaria, and especially if you augment them, if you concentrate the specific compounds that we know have 3-CL protease inhibiting effects, you concentrate those, you give a bit of the full spectrum extract, but you concentrate the specific 3-CL protease inhibitors. You also add Lithospermum erythrorhizon or purple gromwell's 3-CL protease inhibitors and its full spectrum extract. You throw all that at it, the strongest 3-CL protease inhibitors we have, from the herbal pharmacopoeia. If you throw those at it, maybe that's what it needs. Maybe you just need a stronger one, right? Something stronger than ivermectin. So ivermectin has a lot of different effects, right? It's got 3-CL protease inhibitory effects. It lowers, it suppresses nuclear factor kappa beta, decreases interleukin 6, has a number of other effects in the body that are positive, helpful for COVID-19. But maybe for some people, it's just not enough. It's just, you need to maybe you got to dial up the 3-CL protease inhibitor part of the protocol for some long haulers, and so that's why it seems that some people benefit. And I went on like a tirade there, but hopefully that explains it more clearly. All right, I'm going to go through the comments here. Get on Truth Social. Yeah, I actually tried to get on Truth Social like a few days after it came out, and I was one of those people who couldn't get on it. I haven't tried again, but yeah, we're planning to get on there too. There's a few that I've forgotten to give thumbs up. Everyone, go and give a thumbs up, and thank you. We'll follow you to Rumble. Yes, great. I also have you followed on Rumble, so in worst case, you're being heard. Yep, thank you. Do you recommend low-dose naltrexone with steroids? Yeah, low-dose naltrexone is one of those things that's just like super safe and well tolerated. Maybe like 1 in 1,000 people have come to me, and those people are just like they're sensitive to everything. You can look at them the wrong way and they break out in a rash. But for most people, the vast majority of people, low-dose naltrexone is not a problem in any way at all, and it's very beneficial. A lot of people have reported that their COVID gets better, and I would follow the FLCCC protocol. I think they have a progression, or at least our protocol is to start it low, I think at zero point 0.5, and gradually increase it up. We have a whole kind of like progression over the course of like 4 to 6 weeks of increasing low dose naltrexone very gradually. So I would start on that progression. And yes, it would work fine with steroids. We have a group on Facebook. We'll share your videos. Thank you. Jody Virginia says, thank you so much, and you're welcome. Don't get kicked off YouTube. Yeah, I'll try. All right. Thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure.